We have, it looks like the diehards left in our group. It's a pure pleasure. And you know, some of the times that I think about the Ohio River. Hey, Vic, take a seat. Sorry, Vic, I didn't mean to, you know, we haven't had him talk, but if you really want to get a flavor of the Ohio River, Vic over there is superintendent of the islands in the Ohio River National Wildlife Refuge. And so if you really want to get a good understanding of the flora and fauna that's in our river, it's Vic right over there, and it's a pure pleasure. But that's not the purpose of our talk today. In reality, it could be a little bit, because it really is about exploring individual sites and thinking about, you know, what we call a braided trail. So many people think that the Ohio River, there's one destination, it's just really looking at the river or fishing. But when you really think about it, there is a world of history here. And we have assembled a crew of folks that sort of are going to take a little snapshot to identify some of the projects that are going up and down this river. I think probably each river town could have 5 or 6 people up here. You know, and it was a challenge to sort of think through what are some representation of projects and programs that could bring to life the Ohio River. And we've done them a little chronologically. And so we start off with Liz with, let me see, I have this here, do this right, there we go. We start off with Liz, who's with here in Lawrenceburg with the archaeology and thinking through of Native Americans and our pre-history. Then we go to Jim Mallory and looking at sort of, you know, the Ohio River is now a national park, or a component of the national park with Lewis and Clark Historic Trail. And then Greg Roberts is going to share a little bit about the Underground Railroad work and that time in the, you know, mid 1800s. We jump a little bit. My favorite time, which is not on here at all, really is that time when the Army Corps of Engineers sort of really first started managing our river from 1980 or 1888 to 1928 with these, you know, the wicket dams and all the lock houses, the 52 lock houses. That 30-year period, you know, from, you know, late 1800s to early 1900s is pretty much ignored almost on our river. It's a shame, but we ignore it here too. And we jump up to the early 1950s with Jessica Whitehead on a new project that I'm actually involved with called Payne Hollow on the Ohio, which is sort of a art and culture and environmental field station that we're slowly beginning to think about. And then we're going to end up with today's look at the river and with Ryan, and Ryan's work. It's just fascinating to think about, you know, documenting riparian areas around the United States by film. He now has, and you'll hear from him, but from Ashland all the way down to Paducah, unfortunately, just on the south side of the river, because, you know, we all know that the south side of the river is so much nicer than the north side of the river. So the National Park Service really only funded him to look at the south side of the river. But so be it. You'll hear the true story with that coming up. And so without further ado, let's see if this thing works. And Liz, you're on.
Great.
There you go. Okay. And I'm going to keep a timer and go like this.
Well, thank you so much. I am so excited to be here today to see all of you, because really the Ohio Riverway encompasses a lot of the same work that we are doing at the Archaeological Research Institute. A lot of times when people think of archaeology, they think of places like Egypt with the pyramids, Greece, Mexico, or Machu Picchu. And what they don't know is that we have so much important archaeology right here in our backyards. And along the Ohio River alone, there are thousands of archaeological sites, and regular people that live here and around us don't know that. We have hundreds of sites here in Dearborn County alone. So I want to talk a little bit about who we are at ARI. We are a public archaeology nonprofit. We have a mission to preserve archaeological sites along the Ohio River. And we feel like the best way to do that is through hands-on immersive experiences. And we want to encourage preservation of those sites. And what better way to do that than to get out in the field and get your hands dirty, holding an artifact that hasn't been touched for over 1,000 years. We are a 501c3 nonprofit with a board of directors from a diverse backgrounds that provides oversight to our organization that is only 3.5 years old. I started in 2019, and it was just me and one archaeologist, and now it's grown to 11 of my staff, which are over here. So if you guys have any questions about our programming, our outreach, or whatever we do, you feel free to bug them today. We also have over 50 volunteers that help us with all of our outreach and programming, tearing down tents, doing excavations and reading tours. We are based here in Lawrenceburg, but we work with universities and researchers and experts from across the country. So we're not so simple-minded here. We've been studying at a Fort Ancient Village site here in Lawrenceburg that is 800 to 1,000 years old. That people that would have lived in this village were the ancestors of the Shawnee, the Miami, and many more. And we have recently begun the process of taking our archaeological site out of agriculture and converting it into a nature preserve in hopes of better preserving the site and commemorating the people that have once called this land home. So the Ohio River Way of Life is the slogan for ORW, and I don't think that they could have picked a better slogan that ties all that we're trying to do at ARI for our communities, our natural resources, and our cultural resources in our economies that thrive and survive along the Ohio River. It certainly encompasses what we're trying to do. It is also the story that we are researching through our respectful archaeological investigations, and the basis for the stories we are able to tell about the people we are researching. What were their lives like? They were people that lived on farmsteads, went to school in historic schoolhouses. We are also studying an encampment of soldiers that was post-Revolutionary War. And, you know, we obviously have our Fort Ancient Village, and just understanding what life would have been like for the people that have called this place home. I am by no means an expert on working with descendant communities. However, it is important that we all do it. And, you know, we have an opportunity here as a new organization to blaze this new trail. And ARI is doing the same thing. We have been only in existence for 3.5 years, and I am disappointed that we haven't made better strides in working with descendant communities. One of our main educational goals for our programming at ARI is that the people we are studying are people with a past, not of the past. So many times we have to remind our visitors that Native Americans are still here and still alive. We have a unique opportunity, and that is working with and for descendant communities that we are researching, whether it be the descendants of the first settlers of the region, the descendants of the soldiers that were stationed along the Ohio River, the slaves that escaped along the Underground Railroad, or the Native Americans that called these lands home for 30,000 years before Europeans arrived. We have the opportunity to encourage them to include their questions into our research and our preservation efforts. We can provide a platform for these individuals to learn about their ancestors' histories and to share their history with us. Through our research, we can learn about the region's first inhabitants, the people that originally stewarded this land and river. Not only can analyzing and interpreting the past help us with understanding the present, it allows people the opportunity to have their stories told. The people we research were the first farmers, the first artists, engineers, craftsmen, travelers, and traders of the region. They were people just like us with families, pets, beliefs, loves, and called this river home. The Ohio River Valley has been a desirable place to live for 15,000 years. It is fertile, rich land, perfect for farming. The same reasons we call this area home now, and Native Americans called it their home. There are currently over 500 federally recognized indigenous groups in the United States. These groups all have their own cultures, governance, and beliefs. The groups that originally called the Ohio River Valley were no different. They would have had similarities, but also distinctive ways of being that made them diverse and special. The stories we unearthed and are able to tell are unique to our region and unlike anything else in the world. So I want to talk a little bit about all the fun things that we get to do at ARI, as well as all the serious things. Our programming focuses on bringing the past to life through immersive hands-on excavation and lab experiences that I just mentioned are free. Our tours, we do charge a small fee for, but just this year we have reached over 10,000 people through all of our programs and outreach opportunities. Those are our tours. Our local and regional tours are focused on pre-contact and post-contact archaeological sites in and near Lawrenceburg, and we also have a regional tour that goes up to Sunwatch and Fort Ancient, but that's just the beginning of what we're able to offer. We also utilize, oops, I went too far. There we go. We utilize innovative technologies. So we've had the opportunity at ARI to develop an augmented reality tour that uses an iPad, and it transports you back 800 to 1,000 years to see our village site and interact with it. We also have a VR experience in our learning center, which will hopefully be growing as well, that you can walk around the village site 1,000 years ago. And we have a dog in it too. It's pretty fun. So we also have tons of educational opportunities for students of all ages. We have a certified field school. Then we're partnered with local universities. We offer internships for all different types of students, whether they're in high school or in college. We also have youth education opportunities like field trips, day camps for scouts. And we also offer lots of customized group experiences. So you can see all the different fun things that we get to do. A lot of experimental archaeology. If you guys have never thrown a spear with an atlatl, we have a good time with it down at the site. But our main goal is to get the public involved in our research, whether it be doing physical research in the field or in the lab with us, or having a little fun with experimental archaeology. It's important that the public is invested in what we do and what we research. I would like to formally invite you all to join us in exploring our region's cultural resources with ARI. And please join us for a hands-on experience or tour. Now, over to Jen.
Thank you, Liz. David, I'm going to set a timer and see if it'll go off.
You want to stand up?
I am technologically challenged, and if I use slides, I guarantee the lights in the room would go out. So I don't use them any longer. I stand up and talk, and if I can't challenge your mind and get your attention by talking, then I shouldn't be here this afternoon. First of all, I need to thank a partner. This is a partnership operation today, and my partner is right over here. She helped me pass out things today, a partner of 55 years. And the sign over here, thank you, Liz. The sign is what I want to get your eyes and attention to this afternoon. Lewis and Clark Trail Auto Tour Route. That's what we are all about. You are on a National Historic Trail this afternoon. That river right out there. I guarantee you, you're on a National Historic Trail. Nothing less. Now, my soul is mortgaged to the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail and the Lewis and Clark story. No doubt about it.
Hey, Jim, would you mind standing over here so you're out of the light?
Okay,
The wife is freaking out over
all
here.
right. It wouldn't be the first time my wife freaked out. Andrea Ireland is here today, and she's my second love within the National Park Service. I want to tout RTCA. In my life, in my world, RTCA is the special ops. I'm going to say that again. The special ops of the National Park Service. I deal with a group of people in Omaha that I truly like and love, but they're bureaucratic. I go around fixed obstacles, and bureaucrats are one of them. If you're a bureaucrat, I'm sorry, that's your problem, not mine. I'm going to go around you. The Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail is 4,900 miles long. I know whose computer the first letter was written on requesting Senator Bunning to help with this project. Now, we have been told by the National Park Service in Washington that you'll never get an inch. We didn't. We got 1,200 miles, but it took perseverance. I'm going to say three things right now. That sign and write down what I'm saying. It'll make you successful. Lewis and Clark were successful because of three things: perseverance, shared responsibility, and pride and accomplishment. Those three things will make you successful if you want to be president of the world or the best ditch digger in Cincinnati. I guarantee it. And you can send me the bill if you think you don't get your money's worth for it. It's important that we take care of that trail out there and we follow history. Now, don't get excited. Don't go to sleep. I'm not going to give you a history lesson.
Would you say those three things again? Yes, please.
Perseverance, shared responsibility, and pride and accomplishment. This world is devoid of those three things today. We want to talk about everything else except perseverance, shared responsibility, and pride and accomplishment. Enough, Francis. I'll go through them again. I want it etched in your minds this afternoon. History is about people. And Lewis and Clark is all about people. Lewis and Clark had it all. They had diverse nationalities, diverse races, diverse backgrounds, diverse education. They had a woman and they had a dog, Liz. They had a dog named Seaman. They had a family. And that's what they worked together to make that family successful. The entire lesson of today, if I can sum it up in my humble words, is working together, accomplishment together. And that's what made Lewis and Clark successful. David, I'm trying to stay on task here, but you're short chain you put me on here. It was a real life experience out there. And the Ohio River is part of that recorded history. There are journal entries on the Ohio River. Of course, at that time, 1803, there were communities along the Ohio River we have today that weren't even here. There was a forest out there in some places. Cincinnati is recorded. If you'd like to take up the history of me separately, pick up one of my cards out here and call me and I'll regale you all night about the importance and where Cincinnati came into this play and how they went to Big Bone Lick and all the importance of Big Bone Lick. Let's talk about the people and their education. I heard a comment earlier about various degrees of education here. Lewis and Clark had everything from Thomas Jefferson, one of the greatest minds that ever lived. In fact, Jack Kennedy said it was probably his collection for dinner that night were all Nobel laureates. And he said the greatest collection of minds are in the dining room here this evening, except when Thomas Jefferson dined alone. And he was right. Jefferson's mind, it was just far reaching. he was probably the most curious man in the world until I was born. I would, to question anything. I'd go up here and there and everywhere. But Jefferson was truly a mind, great mind. It also encompasses, the story of Lewis and Clark also encompasses a young woman, a 16-year-old woman with a 3-month-old child on her back. My wife and I have talked about the difficulties of taking 2 young boys across the country in an automobile that was air conditioned and well serviced. And how in the name of goodness did this woman take a child 3 months old and a cradle board on her back across the country? It just, thank you. I'm just about there, David. Just about there. So earlier I passed out with Paula's help some outdated annual reports. I received cases of them in 2020 for the 19 report. And then this little virus that we've all been dealing with came along and they've been sitting in my basement. Some of the information is outdated, but there's still good information in there telling what the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail can do for you and your communities along this river out here. I also want to give you something that's of value to you this afternoon. I want you to write it down. Write it down or memorize it once. This is not something long-term that you need to file a grant request for. If you are a community that has small and medium-sized businesses within your community or your county, this is for you tonight. When you get home, the word is www.lewisandclark.travel. That's a free website. We have figured out from Lewis and Clark's point of view, travel and tourism preserves that trail out there. When people understand the importance of the trail and that river out there, they take care of it. It's important to them. www.lewisandclark.travel is free. Register, provide pictures and content, and you're on an international service. If you don't take it and use it, shame on you. You don't have to file a grant, just use it. It's yours. The other thing, excuse my back. At lunch, we passed out maps, Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail maps. There may be a few left out on the table out there. If you want maps for your community, for your visitor center, all you have to do is pick up the phone or make an internet connection to lec_information@nps.gov. They'll ship you a case of maps. They're free. Your tax money paid for it. So use your tax money. If you don't, once again, shame on you. It's yours free. Do you want the address again? They might need it. David says I've got 1 minute. David, I'm going to make it some way, somehow. You know, we do all these things together, but your next opportunity is really great. Greg Roberts is going to take this mic and I'm going to sit down and get off my gimpy knee. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I know what y'all are thinking. Here comes the Underground Railroad guy, and he's going to go on for another hour and a half, but Dave is not going to let me. My name's Greg Roberts. I'm the director of Ohio for the Ohio River National Freedom Corridor. Now that just the name alone is probably long enough to fill up my a lot of time. I brought with me our executive director and founder and the director for the Commonwealth of Kentucky, Ms. Rita Thomas. Now, she's the brains and I'm the brawn. Yeah, I mentioned the other day that Rita has more degrees than a thermometer. And she's an educator, and I'm so happy to have her join me. The Ohio River Freedom Corridor, that's on my pretty introductory slide. And let me see if I can get going here. Now, I'm not going to read everything unless Rita makes me, but our mission is to connect communities, just like the Ohio River Way. We're here to give a venue for all these wonderful communities up and down this river that have incredible Underground Railroad history. Now, most of you all know that history that you have, and we're not trying to steal it from you. We want to help you illuminate that and tell the world. Now, those of you who are not what I would call schooled in the Underground Railroad, the Underground Railroad is the first multiracial civil rights movement in the world. Let me repeat that. The first multiracial civil rights movement in the world. And a significant part of that happened right here in these communities along this Ohio River. Now, when I say multiracial, immediately we think Black folk and white folk. Well, a friend of mine up at the University of Detroit, Mercy in Michigan, has done unbelievable research that says the native tribes were also actively involved on the Underground Railroad. And so this story is evolving. We know what we know, but there are so many untold stories, and there are best-selling books being written by researchers and authors about our local Underground Railroad history. It's something we should be proud of, and there's work still to be done, and that's what the Freedom Corridor is about. We work across borders, like the Ohio River Way. I went the wrong way. We promote historic and cultural significance of the Ohio River and watershed, and stories of those seeking freedom on the Underground Railroad.
I think, Greg, I'll point out here,
Yeah.
I think one of the other important parts of it is that,
Get the others.
oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't want to cause feedback. I think one of the other important parts of this mission is the word legacy. So yeah, we're here to tie together these historical stories, but we want to bring that legacy. What has lasted beyond the story of the Underground Railroad within our communities? And Greg hits at that with the civil rights movement. And so in one of the earlier presentations, they were talking obviously about social justice and the environment. And this is, I feel, one of the areas where we can leverage the work of what we do by connecting folks to say, hey, what's going on in your communities right now, where maybe the history of the past has been swept under the rug, because I live in one of those communities. As a high schooler, I'm like, why have I never heard this history? Why do I not know this exists here? So I became an educator, quite frankly. I now teach at Maysville Community and Technical College and teach African American history there. And so that's really what's driven me to contribute to the founding of this group and try to let other people in the communities know it's okay for us to have this conversation. And we know in the recent years, it's kind of been not okay to have that conversation, or some folks have wanted us to say that. So we want to say it's okay to have this conversation and network our folks together and try to bring people together under that venue.
And we talked about a little earlier with the previous group about tourism. We'll talk a little bit more. This thing doesn't appear to be working, does it?
Okay. Battery might have went on.
That's right. Again, it's creating a world-class tourism experience. And our group originated out of the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center in Cincinnati. And our hope from the get-go was, as Rick was talking about earlier, was to start tours that networked out of the Freedom Center, hopefully manned by park rangers from a wonderful group called the National Park Service, to do tours out north, south, east, and west based on this fantastic Underground Railroad history these communities have. So quickly, textbook, just to kind of give you some validation. This map here shows the main route from 1860 for the Underground Railroad. Where does it go through? Right up that Ohio River Valley, right through Lawrenceburg, all the way out to Portsmouth. It's significant and it's documented and it's real. It's not a rock. It's there. As I mentioned, I represent the state of Ohio as director, Braided the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We're here also kind of on a recruiting mission.
Historians in the room?
There's a leg missing on our tripod. And so we would love to have someone step up from the state of Indiana in the corridor to join us on this mission. We have had 3 very successful conferences. And so I helped a little bit last night with my refined skill of attaching name tags to lanyards.
Great job.
If it's backwards, I'm sorry, it wasn't my fault. But we had a conference at Eastgate in Claremont County initially. We've had a conference in Maysville, Kentucky, and our last conference, unfortunately, was several years ago in Richmond, Indiana. All well attended by academics and all those who have great interest in the Underground Railroad.
Across the country.
From across the country. And I might state this, not just people nationally. They teach our Underground Railroad history in international universities in Europe and Asia. And so we take this for granted. The rest of the world is knowledgeable about it and extremely interested. We have several partners. I'm gonna just make a couple points here. Unfortunately, some of our folks we work with closely are no longer with us. Carl Westmoreland from the Freedom Center is no longer with us. He passed away in March. Jerry Gore from Maysville is no longer with us. But make a picture I have down here at the bottom right-hand corner. Just this past June, the state of Ohio passed legislation designating September as International Underground Railroad Month in Ohio, and the Park Service and Network to Freedom program is encouraging every community in every state and every country that has this Underground Railroad history to designate September as International Underground Railroad Month. I'm here also. Rick was talking about apps. Our wonderful Convention Visitors Bureau in Claremont County has done an app, a Freedom Trail brochure, featuring not only sites in Claremont County, but Ripley and Maysville, and I'm sorry, Augusta, they should be there too, but the technology is there. There are companies that do this, and Jeff Blom of the Convention Visitors Bureau of Claremont County, they have those connections. So this is just a snapshot of several of the communities. Of course, Ripley, we have representatives here from Ripley. Ripley has 2 fantastic brick and mortar Underground Railroad sites in the John Rankin House and the John Parker House. There's an Underground Railroad Museum in Maysville. Augusta has incredible history. There's incredible history here in Lawrenceburg, Rising Sun, Vevey, Boone County, Campbell County, Bracken County, Pendleton County, Mason County. All these communities have incredible stories that we know about, and probably more incredible stories that we don't know about. Now, Mr. Wicks has given me a very subtle hint that I'm done. And so I'd like to turn the microphone over to Miss Jessica Whitehead. She's with the Payne, Ohio. So I think we're going to learn a little bit about the Hubbards.
Yes.
Good job, Greg. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. Well, yes, I'm Jessica Whitehead, and I represent Payne Hollow on the Ohio, and we are a very, very new organization.
not quite 3 years. In fact, less than 1 year. We incorporated as a 501c3 nonprofit earlier this year in 2022. And we've been putting this project together because there was a need for preservation of a very important property called Payne Hollow that I'm going to tell you a little bit about. And Payne Hollow, our mission is to sustainably preserve the structures and land at Payne Hollow, that's in Trimble County, Kentucky, as a means to protect and promote the legacy of Harlan and Anna Hubbard. Now, before I tell you, who knows who Harlan and Anna Hubbard are?
Yeah.
Wonderful, very good. Okay, so for those of you who do not know, Harlan and Anna Hubbard were sustainability pioneers. And they lived on what they termed the fringe of society in their handcrafted bespoke homestead on the Ohio River. And they lived without electricity. They grew and foraged for their own food. And they lived lives of creative hard work and beautiful simplicity. And so when Payne Hollow came on the market, we came together as an organization to purchase Payne Hollow, mostly so that we were able to preserve the important history of the Hubbards and the legacy that they have left for us as sustainability advocates, as environmentalists, as artists, as writers, as musicians. There's a wonderful breadth and depth to the history of the Hubbards that I encourage you all to read more about on our website, and I'll give you that site in a little bit. But we saw a wonderful opportunity to secure this property so that we could tell these stories and we could preserve these structures that are the physical symbols of a kind of lifestyle and a kind of ideal that I think many of us respect very deeply, and that's a sustainable lifestyle. We purchased the Payne Hollow property all through wonderful support from a community of fundraisers. All of this has been through private gifts and through a wonderful matching grant that we received. We raised all of these funds within 3 months to purchase the Payne Hollow property. That's 60 acres there in Trimble County, right there on the river. And we secured that in September 2022. We're very proud to have been able to do that. And we have already set about the important work that we had set for ourselves in phase 1, purchasing the property, phase 2, doing all kinds of really exciting projects like cataloging the historic artifacts that are still there related to Harlan and Anna Hubbard, but also related to the person who took over Payne Hollow after Harlan Hubbard died in 1988, and his name is Paul Hassfurter. And so cataloging the historic artifacts that are there, documenting these beautiful handcrafted Hubbard design structures that are there on the property, documenting the landscape, conducting land and flora and fauna surveys. We're also working on getting Payne Hollow onto the historic register, which is a long but important process, and creating a restoration plan, abiding by historic preservation dictums to preserve these structures for posterity. Now, preserving is what's going to take most of our time for the next probably 2, maybe even 3 years. This is a big project. We have lots of trails to restore also on this property. And these buildings and these artifacts are our #1 priority for phase 2. But we've really started thinking about what we want to do in phase 3. What is phase 3? What is phase 3 and beyond? And those of us who are working with Payne Hollow on the Ohio, and by the way, it's all volunteer right now. So we are a small board of 4 people. David Wicks is our chairman, but we are a small board of 4 people with a wonderful committed group of advisors that have been helping us, achieve these goals. But all of us are starting to think about what we want to do in the future, and we see opportunities to be a resource for the community in a couple different areas. The first is environmental stewardship. We can see Payne Hollow being a place where we might explore conservation easements and protected land status. We also see Payne Hollow as a place where we can develop Hubbard-inspired programs, both on and off-site, about Ohio River history, all this great history we've already been learning about, but also about sustainable lifestyles and about artistic culture. And we also see it as a place that can be a resource for creative expression. So a place that might be somewhere where creatives can come and do residencies to really honor that creative lifestyle of Harlan and Anna Hubbard and their creative spirits. In terms of environmental stewardship, probably the biggest opportunity we have is to be the only protected land on the Kentucky side of the Ohio River between Cincinnati and Louisville. That's a big deal. So if we are able to become a protected piece of land, we would be doing what I think all of us feel is our duty to preserve these important riparian landscapes that we're all holding near and dear to our hearts. And even Harlan Hubbard said of Payne Hollow, "May it long remain as it is, not merely for our selfish enjoyment, but for the satisfaction it may give many people to know that there is such a place. Few wild pockets are left along the river these days." In terms of education and programming, we can also see lots of wonderful opportunities to conduct archaeological surveys of the property. We would love to do that and partner with other local organizations to do things like that, to learn more about Payne Hollow's earliest residents, possibly from indigenous cultures. Yeah. We'd also love to work with local history organizations. We are right next to Preston Plantation and Historic Madison, which have, of course, wonderful connections to the Underground Railroad. So we have opportunities there. And then, of course, as I mentioned, programs that are related to the Hubbards and their specific creative legacy. And creative expression, artistic, literary, musical legacy of Harlan and Anna Hubbard, doing workshops, other kinds of educational programming, and artist, writer, and musician residencies at Payne Hollow. All of these things are things that we see could potentially be something that Payne Hollow in Ohio can do in phase 3. But for now, if you want to learn about what we're doing, what we've got going on, and hear news about what's coming, you can visit PayneHollowOnTheOhio.com, or you can follow us at Payne Hollow on the Ohio on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you very much. So now I'm going to pass things over to Brian here.
Thank you, appreciate it, that was great. It's been 2.5 years since I've done one of these. We can't see anybody, so I'm sure everyone here is nervous. So I'm Ryan with Terrain 360, and to put a little context in it, and I think we go this way, yeah, there it is. I have a company that is a lot like Google Street View, only we focus on the outdoors, hiking trails, biking trails, waterways. We work primarily with the National Park Service, state park groups, some conservation groups all over the country. Started in the East Coast. One of our biggest projects was mapping out the waterways of the Chesapeake Bay, include the Susquehanna, the Potomac, the James, which was pretty amazing. A lot of hiking and biking trails too. We mapped out 500 miles of the Appalachian Trail until my guy quit. And I was like, how do you quit a job where we pay you to hike the Appalachian Trail? But what it is. That's the best job ever. So I'm here to talk more about this amazing project this past summer. We mapped out, I think, a total of 750 miles or so of the Ohio River. And as David mentioned earlier on, yes, it was what I call river left, south bank, Kentucky side, which is fine. There's always opportunity to do this side, of course, the way I look at it. And the reason why we did that side is that the Ohio River is so wide that if we took our equipment, which I'll go over in a minute to show you what it looks like, in the middle, you wouldn't really be able to see the shoreline at all or experience it. So, so just to back up a little bit, think of it as a Google Street View for the outdoors. So it's basically millions of photographs set in a sequentially ordered, beautiful photographs, by the way, every single one sequentially ordered, and you can virtually paddle the Ohio River in this case. So our partner in this project was the Lewis and Clark Trust, and Jim here, of course, we appreciate that, and the National Park Service. And the project came about 4 or 5 years ago. I contacted a friend of mine at the National Park Service and said, look, this would be super cool if we could map out the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail. How do we make that happen? 4 years passed, COVID happened, and then I said, finally, they said, look, let's just do a demo. I'll go out there, I'll pay for everything. We'll do a demo in 2021. I'll map out segments of, the Missouri River in Ohio. I keep hitting my knee. So the Missouri River in Montana. So we did that. It was great. Now this year we're fast forwarding and we're mapping out the Ohio, and it's incredible. So the total 780 miles. 2.2 million total images, 380,000 panoramic images that approximates, I don't know, maybe a panoramic image every 30 feet. It seems like a lot, but when you think about the future capability of this technology, you could stitch that together to create a virtual experience, to experience what the Ohio River was like at that moment in time as we captured it. I look at this as long-term use. Immediate use, people could experience the Ohio River right now and be able to float it right now from all over the world. And then in the future, like I said, study flora fauna on the shoreline. We have computer algorithms that can look at, detect plant species, which is, I think, the coolest thing with these photographs. The entire project overall, for 4,900 miles of trails. It's a multi-year project. It's huge. That's in the Snake River, I believe, in Washington State. And this, by the way, this view here, since this is a PowerPoint, I can't actually spin around in the 360. It's just a screen grab. So just in your imagination, imagine you could spin around and look at the 360 view. This is the Ohio sections we've mapped. Some sections we mapped out around islands. There's quite a few islands in this part of the Ohio River that we mapped out. So we went around those. We went up some creeks. We did some land trails. We spent some time at West Point with Gary Masterson. That was awesome. But you can see it's kind of a mishmash of trails here. A lot of the issues we've had are we're working around dams. We can't take our tiny boat through dams. So yeah, that's why it's all like chopped up. We tried. Let's put the captain or whatever said it's a 6-hour wait. It's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, I'm gonna wait 6 hours. We need to pull out. So that's anyway. So here's, I think this is Cincinnati. Yep. Purple People Bridge, I think is what it is. I think so. This is an example. So we have the image here. This right here is hard to see, but we have an object and label detection for people who have, for ADA compliance, and because it's cool. It's basically using AI to detect the objects within the image and read labels on the actual image. And that can be applied to the entire trail if needed. Here's the example we vote. That is not Portsmouth, Kentucky, it's Portsmouth, Ohio, and it's actually not there, it's in Akron. So I mislaid that. This was originally 72 slides. I had to bring it down to 6 minutes, so it's only easy. We started in Akron, Kentucky. This is our boat. Here's our camera rig on top that consists of 6 cameras, DSLR cameras, use high end. I want it to look great. No GoPros here. There's a computer that controls everything and outboard. And we just literally cruise down the Ohio until we hit a dam. We got to go back upstream, pull out, and portage around the dam. It's like a 2-hour process. So it took about 2 weeks, and I've seen it all. It's a beautiful river. There's no question. A lot of shipping traffic. I think I talk about some of the challenges. Here's our not the Ohio River technology. It's a small raft right there, which I would not recommend taking out the Ohio stretches. Here's a smaller version of our mapping boat for smaller creeks and streams. This is the Shiawassee in Michigan, Black River, Montana. So the challenges, shipping traffic, if you're coming around a bend or a curve of the river and there's a boat pushing the opposite direction, they sometimes push up a big wake, a big, a wave. Had an issue in the Snake River where, my camera slammed down. I always face them head on. I think I was trained to do that. We had a boat safety class. I think so. Coast Guard's here. They should know. Debris in river was an issue. And then just on the downstream side of a dam, if out of the channel, low river levels have been a problem too, because you got to make sure we have a choice. We follow the channel, or do we go to the shallow side? So there's always an issue there. Here's an example of a dam. We had to go up to it and turn around and go back upstream, which is really neat.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Go through the lock.
6-hour wait. Yeah, there's like 10 ships lined up in most cases. This is back in July. Yeah, it's just time. I mean, and plus, I have a tiny 16-foot inflatable boat. Those locks, it's 50 feet drop. I mean, I'm not, where am I gonna tie up to? I don't have 50 feet of rope in my boat. You know, so, you know, and you're supposed to have, we can talk about it afterwards, but there, you know, there's a whole thing. I was like, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. Yeah, Maysville, Kentucky, here, this is showcasing some idyllic towns. Spent a lot of time, like I mentioned, at West Point, Maysville, Ashland, just seeing the beautiful towns. I mean, these are iconic views, go over some of these beautiful bridges. That's actually toward the end of our project, Scuttletown Dam, I think it's called. And then here's Ashland again, and that's a riverboat we passed by, just I think just downstream of West Point, which I thought was kind of cool. It's like, well, I've never seen one of those. I'm from Virginia, you know, we don't see a riverboat in Virginia on the James, that's for sure. And then the project funding, people ask, how did you pay for this thing? And I'm almost done, I saw the woman, like, the Losing Clark Trust found the cash to pay for this on behalf of the National Park Service. And that's how it was funded, which is awesome. We got to do a huge section of the, I think we went above our contract, right, Jim? I love it so much. I wanted to keep going.
Give me the map and give me that map. Mike, give me that map.
He was like, we gotta go, we gotta be done. So one other thing I want to mention too, we did some land trails. We did some state park here in Big Bone Lake, which was really cool inside. And then here's Cincinnati, I thought it was interesting to show. I wish I had shown, we had just went right past here and actually have it on the website. I could have shown that, but anyway, Jim, real quick. Can you say one thing?
Yeah, we're good. 1 second here. I really do want to publicly appreciate and say thank you to Green 360 and to Ryan. He's super to work with. We just need to calm him down just a little bit. He totally enjoys what he does. The main part I want to say is this was Kentucky money that paid for this. I want to make certain that everybody knows this is in the public domain. When he finishes with his, I'm going to call it lab work, it's out there to be used. So it's for you to use. If you don't use it, once again, shame on you. It's out. And by the way, those islands are in this part of the thing.
You know, I was gonna say that, it is a fascinating technology, going all the way from archaeology to modern day AI sort of floating on down the river. And, you know, those islands, Vic, are just equally as fascinating. In our early conversation, some of the songs, you know, they've done the Great Lakes, they've done all the different sort of, and it's just fascinating to do the Ohio River now. But to do a content analysis of the shoreline, to look at erosion or to look at plant species change, you can do that. All you have to do is do this on an annual basis. And so there's places in the country where he's gone down over the time. Or if you're a river town and you're developing your riverfront, you want to get a river view over time. It's just a fascinating deal. All these things are online right now. If you just go to terrain360.org, you can look at all of their work. Huh?
.com.
Oh, okay, terrain360.com. And you can float up and down, and one of the best things for me is this 3 miles an hour. So you float down just like you're in a kayak. You can actually jump from place to place, but you can turn it on as a screensaver. We have a little bit of time left, and I just wanted to ask, what are projects for, you know, 2023, 2024 that might be sort of engaging for these communities? Liz, do you have anything that you'd like to talk about?
Sure, I have all the ideas. And now I'm sure all of you guys can come to us and bring us all of your ideas as well. For 2023, immediately in the future, which will hopefully some of our bigger ideas will blossom into 2024 and beyond. Immediately, Lewis is actually a veteran and becoming an archaeologist, or has become an archaeologist, and is leading a search for the Rowdy Camp, which was our post-Revolutionary War encampment of soldiers that was basically probably within eyesight of here. It was on the high point of the Great Miami River, and to kind of basically keep the peace of things that were going on at that time period. So he's looking for that. The information on that site has been lost, and so we're hoping to added back into history. Another project that we're working on is with the Oxbow. And
what's the Oxbow? Not everybody knows what this famous place right over here is. What's the Oxbow?
a wetland nature preserve. I don't know, John, what are you?
You can see our portion of the Ohio River up this, it's kind of between here and the bridge.
There's another small stream that comes in right there, right, that creates it.
Last question. Liz, what's your aspect of what the World Heritage Site is going to do to tourism and traffic in this area?
I think it's going to explode it, with all the archaeological sites that we have, outside of what they're protecting and recognizing in Ohio. I think obviously we all have an opportunity to jump on that bandwagon. And
Could you say what you're talking about?
the UNESCO World Heritage Site, they're going to be hopefully recognizing and preserving, mostly Hopewell time period archaeological sites in Ohio. So that's a big deal. It's been what, a 10-year process, I think.
Yeah, but it's probably going to be fast tracked. It's the only thing in the pipeline. But it's going to be on the tributaries, primary tributary in Little Miami to the Ohio. And typically, UNESCO heritage sites get 6 million visitors a year. They're going to be here looking for other things to do.
Yes, correct. So we all have a good opportunity.
Anything else? Any other upcoming events or something that you want to mention? Pass it on, Jim.
Big guy, I'm gonna take it, David. Don't ever give me the mic.
I just said pass it on.
Big ideas. This next year, we're raising funds to do a tourism study, possible tourism study for a Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail. It has never been done before. Trails, historic trails are open-ended. There's no gate. We're funding that to see what the tourism possibilities really are on that. Cell phones have given us a whole lot of data that we didn't have before without trying done.
Sorry, our time is up. That's okay. Sometimes Lewis and Clark gets all the attention, when in reality, there's 12,000 years, 20,000 years before that, and one future gets all the attention.
Clark again, David.
We talking about Lewis and Clark. I just wanted to call out our mayor over here from Westport, that most people don't know that, most people from the Lewis and Clark trip came to Florida. And then the second crew was Westport, right down over there, the end of our trip. West Point here, my total fault here, but West Point at the confluence of the Salt River and the Ohio. It's just a fascinating deal to see how interconnected these whole routes are. And these guys have, if anybody has a couple extra dollars in their pocket, they have an elementary school that's empty right now. That downtown West Point, that could just be a beautiful Ohio River Museum and Kentucky history, Indiana history. So if anybody has any spare cash, West Point would love to have something like that. So it's just a 300,000. He already has the plan. So going once, going twice. Well, we wanted to thank